Hello, thank you for tuning into this channel. My name is Key. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. I learned about attachment styles a few years ago. Initially, it was something that stood out to me. It did interest me, and I wanted to learn more. At that time, I understood the concept in a practical way, but it was not something that I noticed that I had issues with. So I began to notice like negative patterns in my personal life, and that actually motivated me to take a deeper look at how I was showing up and how I needed to improve my attachment style for healthier interaction. Today we're going to talk about how I went from an anxious attachment style to a secure attachment style and how you can too. First, I want to give a little backstory, things that stood out to me within my life that made me decide or notice that, something was going on that needed to be addressed. I was following a YouTuber, which I still watch her content. She has a great channel. She had a test that you could take and you can figure out what your attachment style was. I took her test and my results came back that I was anxious preoccupied, and that meant I had an anxious attachment. So with that being said, I didn't take the test too much to heart. I read what it meant. I understand. And I kind of moved on. It wasn't until years later, linked that test in the description if it's still around. I'm not 100% sure if she still has it. I believe she does. I'll definitely link that, but if not, I'll find another test and I'll link that in the description so you all can take that test if you are interested in knowing what your attachment style is. So a couple of key things stood out to me, not at that time, but later on in life. I realized one day that I continuously attract emotionally unavailable people. And I was just wondering, like, what is that about? Like, why am I attracting these people that don't, want to have certain conversations, or when certain things come up or certain questions I may ask, they would get really uncomfortable, or they just would avoid conversations, or whatever the case may be altogether. And what happened was I ended up coming up with a harsh conclusion that in certain ways I was emotionally unavailable as well. And what I realized, that majority of the people in my family and people that I grew up around was also emotionally unavailable. So I was just really comfortable being around that type of energy and that type of environment. So I would seek people who could continue that cycle on for me, because it was all I was used to. And it was something that I was really comfortable with. So a couple of things I believe in my household growing up, I believe that emotional intimacy was just really foreign. If you don't know, there's 5 or 6 different forms of intimacy. Emotional intimacy is one. In fact, emotional intimacy is probably one of my top forms of intimacy, and it was just not a thing in my household. And I also, as a child, was criticized often for being too emotional. And also, being emotional and expressing emotion in my household was definitely looked at as being weak. So, with that type of foundation growing up, you can imagine why, when it comes to emotions, I, kind of put it in the background, or I just have a not the best connection, or to expressing my emotions authentically to people, and and communicating what needs that I had, or getting my needs met in a secure way. So that's a little bit about my backstory when it comes to emotions, and how my foundation was created. So with my anxious attachment style, I also noticed, in doing research and just diving deeper into all of this, that I was extremely afraid, and had a heightened fear of rejection. So often, how that would show up in my life is I would overextend myself to people, and I also, diagnose myself as a people pleaser, because I would do whatever it took to please people, overextend myself, and I struggled with setting boundaries with people, because I had insecurity deep inside, of feeling unworthy of love, and feeling unworthy of genuine natural attention that I craved and I desired. So I would do very passive things to get, in hopes of getting my needs met that way. So that is a little bit about, me and my relationship with my attachment style and why it showed up in my reality and in my adulthood the way that it has thus far. So in this video, we're going to talk about what attachment styles are, where these insecure attachment styles come from. I'm going to discuss a bit about how I overcame my anxious attachment style and became more secure in my attachment and in my relationships. And then we're going to talk a bit about, can two people with insecure attachment styles have a healthy relationship, or if they're totally doomed when it comes to connecting in that way. But before we do, I would like to let you all know, if you need any financial, emotional, spiritual, or mental support, I have a ton of goodies in the description, including free resources and also ways that you can connect with me. So definitely check out the description box if you need any type of support in there that you do not see, that you would like to see in the future. Make sure you let me know in the comments, because I would love to support you in any way that I can. What is an attachment style? Attachment style is the way you attach yourself within your personal connection. There's technically 4 attachment styles, but I only focus on 3 because 2 of them falls in the same category. And those 3 are, the first one is anxious. And this is the category that I fall into. If you have an anxious attachment style, you struggle to communicate your needs directly. You have a sensitive nervous system. You pretty much feel everyone's emotions. You take on everyone's emotions and things like that. Fear abandonment and rejection. And you also need a lot of reassurance. And sometimes you come off as needy or clingy, okay? That's the anxious attachment style. Now, if you have a secure attachment style, you know how to communicate your needs in a healthy way. You can easily express your emotions. You can trust fairly easy. You have no problem reciprocating your feelings to other people. And you're really, really good about cooperating and being very flexible within your relationships. Third attachment style is avoidant. Avoidant attachment style struggles with expressing their feelings. They downplay the importance of relationships. They're really self-reliant. They're unwilling to ask for a lot of help. They're not really expressive in that way. They don't like conflict. They don't really like to talk about things that may bring up issues, because they don't want any drama or any troubles or anything like that. And sometimes they can come off cold or emotionally withdrawn, okay? So anxious and avoidance is they're insecure, okay? And then you have secure. And I want to point out that even though anxious people, they may come off as needy or clingy, but please understand, just the way that they're regulating their emotions, they come off that way. But at the core of them, that may not be the case. And then on the flip side, avoidant, they may come off cold and emotionally withdrawn, but in the same way, they do have emotions. They do want to connect with people on an emotional level, and they're not cold. They do love. They just may not, it just may not come off that way initially. And please do understand that the reason why these 2 insecure attachments show up this way is because they're both going to these mechanisms when it comes to surviving. It's like a survival technique to, protect their feelings and to protect their emotions, is the reason why they respond that way. Now that we know what attachment styles are, let's talk about where these insecure attachment styles come from. Your attachment style comes from, how your foundation was set when you were a child, in the growth and development years of you growing up. However your caregivers engaged you and communicated with you when it comes to emotions and things like that. This is the way that you're going to show up in the world, and this is how you show up when you become an adult. Or the anxious attachment style, their caregivers were pretty much inconsistent. They didn't really know what to expect. Their parent was probably really preoccupied with other things, was probably not around a lot, so they didn't know when their parent may be coming back. Everything was pretty much in the air. And this is why they're very anxious when it comes to connections, because they just don't know where they stand. They don't know what's going on. It's just not predictable. Everything is kind of unstable in that way. Avoidance insecurity style, their caregiver just didn't meet their needs emotionally. Any emotional things that they felt, any conversations that they wanted to talk about or needed to have, their parents just didn't make that room to discuss anything that may have been important to them, or anything they may be feeling, or maybe that they were going through. So at a certain point, they just got to the point where they just said, well, I know that I'm not going to be able to talk about anything. I know I'm not going to be able to express myself. Nobody wants to hear me. No one wants to listen to me. So I'm just going to avoid these type of conversations. I'm going to avoid my feelings. So they look at it as, well, I didn't receive it, so I don't have it to give to anybody. I don't have anything for anybody. Now, on the flip side, the anxious, they didn't receive emotional support either. But because of this, they decided to take on emotional support for everybody. So on one side, they don't have nothing for anybody. And on the other side, they're just doing everything for everybody. So that's how that shows up. Now, avoidance, they set very strict, firm boundaries to protect themselves from being hurt. Obviously, they're emotional, both anxious and insecure, their emotional needs just were not met. But the difference between the two is, or being let down. And then on the flip side, the anxious, they're very loose with their boundaries. They overextend themselves, they people please, and they do this in hopes that their needs will be met. Any of this resonates with you, know which side of the spectrum that you fall in. Now, moving forward to how once I realized, hey, something's wrong here, something's going on, my relationships, I'm not getting my needs met, I'm not getting what I want, I'm not attracting the type of people that I want. What can I do? Once I realized that there was a problem, I got very intentional about the emotional anxious person. Their needs weren't met. How to, being more secure in my attachment. And a few things that I did, knowledge that you do have an insecure attachment style. The second thing I did was realize how I was showing up and how what I was doing was problematic. So because I needed so much reassurance, I could be a little bit pushy. I could be a little bit forceful. I could be a little bit like, yeah, now, if there's any issues, like the smallest issue that may come up, or if I just felt like I just don't know where I stand, like I need to know, like now, tell me, I need you to tell me something. And that's kind of how I showed up. But I did have to realize like why that could be a problematic, especially to a person with avoidant attachment style. Now, the third thing that I had to do was work on myself, focus on myself, become more sure and more secure within myself, just become more confident, just realize, that I am enough regardless of anything outside of me, and just really do a lot of self-care and a lot of self-work. The next thing that I did to become more secure is I connected with secure people. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, when I would, and all together, I'm just gonna, just let it go. And they probably didn't receive a lot of healthy intimacy as well. So whether it be subconsciously connect with emotionally unavailable people or people with insecure attachment styles, and I finally started to meet people with secure attachment styles, because it was just really foreign to me. I didn't even, realize that it was something different that was available to me. And I just realized how they did things and how they expressed themselves and how they didn't have trust issues, and how it wasn't like so dramatic to have certain conversations. And they had no problem telling me, how they felt, or reciprocal in whatever it was that, we had going on, or we wanted to do. And I just realized like, wow, this is definitely different than anything that I was used to. So connecting more with secure people, it showed me how to communicate. It showed me how to show up. It showed me that I can express myself, that I can directly express my needs and things like that. So the next thing that I did is I decided to intentionally stop trying to fix people, and I stopped attempting to do their emotional work for them. This is a big thing, and it started out when I was a kid, because, I would see, like, when you hold emotions in and you hold your truth in, what happens is you eventually explode, and everything just comes out in a very turbulent way. So when that would happen in my family, or just with the people around me, I will always be the person to clean that up, and just be patient and be calm, and just work with everybody to and kind of pull out of them what's going on, and ask the tough questions, and do all of those things. And it's funny because now this is the type of work that I'm called to do, but it's like, at least I feel like I'm doing it with people who want to do the work, instead of me forcing people to have to do that work. So this is something that I've always done, but now I actually can do it in a way where I can be intentional about it, and I can help people in a healthy way. So I had to stop trying to fix people who didn't want to fix themselves, and I had to stop doing emotional work for people who didn't want to do the work for themselves. That's something that I intentionally stopped doing. Another thing that I did to become more secure within my attachment style was I recognized how insecure connections made me feel. And when I would get into connections that made me feel insecure, made sure that I disconnected from that in a healthy way. Because sometimes what would happen is I would find myself in these friendships, or these relationships, or these partnerships with people who aren't giving me what I need. And I'm just tolerating it, even though it's not making me happy and it's making me feel away. But now, at this day and age, I'm like, if I'm not getting what I need, I'm not getting my needs met, it's probably not the connection for me. This is not the relationship for me. And I'm totally fine with walking away. And that's something that I can do today wholeheartedly, when in the past, I had maybe a scarcity mindset, and that's something that I would have never done. But that's something that I've learned how to do, and it's definitely made me more secure when it comes to my attachments. And then the next thing, and the last thing that I done that I did intentionally, was I stopped pursuing emotionally unavailable people, like people who I know, and you don't know until you obviously get into a conversation, or just begin to get to know somebody. Those deep, engaging type of conversations, or even like affection, they just really didn't receive it in a healthy way. So this is why they showed up in that way. If you meet somebody, or you talk to somebody, and you kind of get the idea that they're emotionally unavailable, you have to make a conscious decision to kind of realize, like, that's probably not the best for me mentally. Probably shouldn't move forward within that connection. They just have too much emotional work, or that they need to do. And it's not even that they have too much, because I'm fine with, I'm not afraid of any baggage. I'm not tripping, and you shouldn't be either. You shouldn't be afraid of any baggage. The issue is the person going to put the work in to get to where they need to be, or is they going to be a victim to their circumstances? So now that I explained to you everything that I did to become more emotionally secure in my attachment style, or just more secure in general when it comes to relationships, I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do to be more secure in your attachment style. So I'm going to speak on this from a place, I'm going to use the word partner a lot. But when I say partner, I want you guys to understand, this could be friendships, this could be lovers, this could be business partners, this could be your family, your children, this could be anybody that you have an attachment to, okay? And then also, I'm going to go through the anxious side first. So if you resonate more so with the anxious side, these first tips is going to be for you. And then if you fall on the avoidance side, the second part is going to be for you. And again, if you don't know which side you fall into, it's going to be important to take the test that I put in the description. And also, if you are enjoying these tips and these signs and all of this information, if it's helping you and if it's bringing any value to you, you can download this. It's going to be in the description as well. So don't worry. You don't have to write this stuff down. Just go ahead and download it later and just make sure that you're being intentional about practicing it. So if you fall in the same category as me and you're anxious, before I even move into that, I do want to say one more thing. Your attachment style can change depending on the person you're interacting with. This is very, very, very important, okay? You may be like, I can see both of these sides in me. And all that means is if you are on the anxious spectrum, but you meet somebody that's anxious as well or more anxious than you, it's going to naturally push you to be kind of avoidant. Okay, it's not going to be a perfect match made in heaven. So don't think that's how it works. And vice versa. If you're a very avoidant person and you meet somebody that's avoidant too, or they're more avoidant than you, it's going to make you extremely anxious. Okay, so do understand that your attachment style can change depending on the person that you're dealing with. And this is very important because we deal with lots of different people. So it's not a one size fits all. Insecure is insecure. Fear is fear. Abandonment is abandonment. Please remember that. Okay, moving forward. If you have an anxious attachment style, these are some things that you could do to be more secure. Oh, before I get into that, is one more thing I want to say. This is a funny way that both sides look at conflict. Very funny. I came up with this earlier in a conflict. I was in a conflict, and this is how we both looked at it. And I was like, that's funny. I'm making a video about this. I got to take this down. For me, as the anxious person in the connection, I looked at it as we have to talk about this. And then on the flip side, the avoidance person, they said, I think they said this out their mouth. They was like, I don't need to deal with this, right? So for me, it's like, we need to talk about this. And for them, it's like, I don't need to deal with this, because that's how they both look at it. This, regardless of what side you fall onto, this is how you look at it. And this is why each person shows up the way they do. The anxious person is pushing, and the avoidant person is pulling. So that's funny. I just wanted to drop that real quick. So moving forward, if you are anxious, the first thing that you can do to be more secure is to set boundaries and non-negotiables, okay? Have high standards for yourself and how you want to be treated. Do not abandon yourself in attempt to please other people. Stop abandoning yourself. Stop being so selfless. Be a little selfish about yourself. Be a little bit selfish about your time and how you want to be treated. This is extremely important. Also, give room, time, and space for your partner to process their emotions. Don't be so pushy. Don't be so impatient. Give time, give space, let them process themselves, let them figure out how they're feeling, and then revisit it at a later time, a later date, but don't let it go on too long, obviously. Don't be too demanding of emotional intimacy, okay? I know you want emotional intimacy. I know you desire it. I know you want to be reassured. I know you like to have those conversations. You know where you like to know where you stand, but just do not be too demanding. Don't be too pushy. Don't be too forceful, okay? Also, don't talk too much. Don't speak too much. Just allow room for your partner to be. Just be who they are. Just let them be, okay? Also, be clear on what it is that you need and what you're willing to give in return for those needs. Be very clear about it and make sure you express it to your partner in a very clear way. Also, meet your partner where they are and allow space for them to grow and evolve on their own terms. Don't try to change them. Don't try to push them. Don't try to force them. Don't do any of that, okay? Also, stop taking things so personal and realize that you aren't the only person that's struggling. Yes, you want to be reassured. Yes, you want to know where you stand. Yes, you want to know how they feel about you. But on the opposite end, they're also struggling as well. They're struggling to communicate what it is that they're experiencing, okay? So just understand them. The better you can understand them, the better they can understand you, the better that the relationship will be. Moving on to the avoidant. So if you have an avoidant attachment style and I would say, don't be so firm on your boundaries, okay? Be a little flexible. Don't say if this person asks me this or say anything, it's over. It's not working for me. I ain't got time for that, right? Don't be so firm, okay? Understand that your partner struggles communicating their needs and be patient with them in that way. Be flexible with them in that way, okay? Also, be open and clear when you communicate what it is that you're experiencing emotionally. Open up to them. Tell them how you're feeling. Be clear about it. Let them know. I know it's scary. I know it's hard. Baby steps, okay? Also, don't dismiss your partner's feelings or emotions. Don't just set them aside and be dismissive and be like, I don't have time for that. I don't need this. Like, that could be very hurtful and painful. It doesn't feel good. Do understand this, okay? Also, practice being more vocal and being more expressive. Say what you feel and feel what you say, and do it as much as you can. I know it takes time. Baby steps. Cool. Next thing, understand that your partner is not trying to be overtly confrontational. Understand they just want to know what you're experiencing internally. They just want to know what you're going through. They want to know how you are processing your emotions within the relationship or within the partnership. Also, understand that your partner just wants to nip any problems in the bud. So it could be the smallest thing. But if you guys don't discuss it and get on the same page, understand that that small thing can grow into something very big later, and it could be very problematic, okay? Also, let your partner know what it is that you require, what you need, and what you are willing to give in return, okay? Another thing, do not brush conflict under the rug. I know it's easier and you're very comfortable with not discussing difficult things, but it's important to not brush it under the rug. Take some time if you need to, but make sure that you revisit the conflict in a timely manner. I know that you want nothing more than to never talk about the issue ever again, but understand, like I said, if you don't nip it in the bud, it can grow into something large and it can be very problematic. You don't want those problems. So with that being said, both styles need to be open to taking time and space when conflict arrives, but be sure to let your partner know, I am leaving for a while, but I am not leaving you, and I will be back. And make sure that you revisit this in a timely manner. Do not let things fester for weeks and months and years. It ain't going to work, and it's not healthy. And a lot of us have abandonment wounds, even though we weren't physically abandoned, but we were emotionally abandoned in some way. So abandonment issues still shows up. Moving on to the last part of the video, which you all have been waiting for. I know you want to know if two people with insecure attachment styles, if they can have a healthy, beautiful relationship. And the answer in the short version is yes, they can. I actually am proof that you can have a healthy, stable relationship with two people who have insecure attachment styles. But I have to be totally honest with you all. Once you experience a secure relationship, it's going to be extremely difficult to accept anything less. But if you feel the person is worth it and you feel like they are willing to put in the work and they're not too extreme on any side, I say go for it, okay? Since I've been in more secure relationships in these past couple years or last years or so, or whatever, I noticed that my secure friends and my secure connections, they praise me, they reassure me, they validate me, they tell me how great I am, and all of these things. And this is extremely foreign to me when I've always known how great I am, but nobody around me was telling me, nobody around me was reassuring me how valuable I was. And that could be hurtful, and that could, be a huge blow to your self-esteem. Feeling that with your secure connections, I mean, it feels amazing. And they also allow room for you to do the same to them wholeheartedly. Like, speaking to some of my friends, we openly say, how much we miss each other, how we want to see each other, how we love each other, and how important we are to each other. I mean, that feels really, really good to be able to have that. So when you experience that, it's going to be hard to deal with people who don't give you that. But like I said, if you think they're worth it and they're willing to put in the work, I say go for it, okay? But understand that we all deserve to know that we are loved and we are appreciated by the people that we love and we invest our time and ourselves in. So that's why it's important to always practice being as secure as you can be, and then also expecting that from the people that you're dealing with too, and don't expect anything less, okay? That's important to remember. Also understand all relationships are work. So regardless of if you're with a secure person or an insecure person, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some patience. It's going to take some sacrifice. And speaking to, lots of people who are secure in their attachment styles, understand that they get hurt as well. When they interact with insecure connections and insecure people, they get hurt, they get disappointed, and they end up in situations where their needs aren't met. And this is why it's so important that if you do have an insecure attachment style, that you don't think that you can just run over and be with a more secure person and everything is going to be great, because you do have the capability of hurting someone because you haven't done the work. So regardless of if you're with a secure person or an insecure person, it's important for you to understand that you have to do the work. If two people have insecure attachment styles, just make sure you stay away from people who are too extreme. If a person is just too anxious or too avoidant, I say that's a red flag. Just let that go and move forward. It ain't worth it. If they ain't trying to do any work, if they want to be a victim, if they want to have all these excuses, yeah, just let that go. So in order for two insecure people to have a healthy relationship, they both have to make sacrifices. Both parties have to make a decision that you have to have an equal goal that you both are willing to work towards. For example, your goal could be that we want to be together and we want to have a successful relationship. And you have to make the decision that that goal is more important than any of your fears. So when you're feeling like I don't have to deal with that, you have to make sure, if you're avoidant, you have to be like, my ego is not as important as my relationship with this person. I need to let my ego chill for a minute. I need to let my, these hardcore boundaries that I set, I need to let them slide for a second, because this relationship and this person is important to me. On the flip side, as the anxious person, you have to let your insecurities and your fears not over dominate the relationship. You can't be so insecure that you're feeling like I need to know right now whatever, and you putting your fears over the relationship. So long as both parties make the decision that the success of the relationship is going to always be at the forefront, yes, you can have a healthy relationship. Another thing that you're going to want to take from this when going into having a healthy relationship with an insecure person, well, a person with the insecure attachment style, It's going to be very, very important to set boundaries, set standards, and have your non-negotiables. If you do this, when conflict arises, a lot of times you guys can just be calm about it and let it go and just deal with it at a later time. Long as it doesn't overstep your boundaries and your non-negotiables, and long as it, fall within your standards and it's not anything too traumatic, then you're going to be fine. But also, both parties, please be flexible. Don't be too hardcore on your boundaries. Like, if it's a little thing, let it fly. Don't be so hard, like, oh, I don't take shit like that. I ain't taking that from nobody. I ain't got to deal with this. I don't need to be with you. I can be bad by myself. Like, having that type of mindset, it's going to be very hard for you to have a healthy, successful relationship. So please keep that in the back of the mind. Also, leave a line for open communication. This is extremely important, okay? You guys have to understand, if you have an insecure attachment style, you're always going to have that insecurity at the core of you. Yes, you're going to be proactively working to be more secure, but I guarantee you, I can tell you this from experience. If I meet a person tomorrow with an insecure attachment style, they're going to bring my insecurities out of me. It's just going to happen. I may be able to check myself and regulate myself and make it not go too far, but some insecurity is going to come. I'm going to get triggered in a way. It's going to happen. When two insecure people come together, it's going to be some drama. It's going to be some problems, and it could be small problems, but it's going to be some type of conflict. And the reason why these conflicts is coming, the number one reason for these issues, the key that I'm about to give you guys, is communication. Communication is the biggest problem, is the biggest issue. And the reason that is because majority of the time we take what our partner says or means out of context. They say one thing, we take it as something else, okay? So you have to make sure that you leave a line to have a communication for you both to express not just what you said, but be able to explain what it is that you actually meant. This is extremely important, okay? Please remember that. Moving forward, don't be afraid to have the difficult conversations, because they will come up. As long as you got your boundaries and your non-negotiables in order, you don't have no problems. And honestly, if somebody, I don't care if it's a secure person or not, if somebody, hits one of your non-negotiables, deuces. Be up out of there. Period, point blank. For example, one of, my non-negotiables is trust, okay? Obviously, if you insecure, you watching this video, you have some form of trust issues. I know I do. Trust is huge for me. If I can't trust you, I can't do nothing with you. So, if somebody, does something that conflicts my trust in them, it's no way for the relationship to move forward. Now, I know we spoke about being flexible. So let's break it down, y'all. Let's talk about breaking a non-negotiable trust and breaking a small trust that could be worked out. So a non-negotiable trust is if you are unfaithful. Infidelity. It's no way around there for me. No way around that. For one, when somebody is unfaithful to you, you experience infidelity, if you accept that type of treatment back from them, what you're showing them is you are willing to sacrifice yourself over them. So you're showing them that you love them more than you love yourself. If we go back to the, earlier in the video, especially with an anxious person, you can't sacrifice yourself and you can't abandon yourself for nobody else. That ain't gonna work. But on a small sector, when it comes to trust, if your partner said that they would show up to your game at a certain time and they was late, okay, you can, like, don't abandon them because of that. Don't throw deuces on a relationship because they was late to your game or they was late to dinner. Now, if they didn't show up to dinner and they didn't call, they didn't text, you called them for 3-4 hours and you couldn't get a hold of them, that could potentially be a red flag. It could potentially be a red flag, I'm just saying. But, also communicate to them, hey, when you disappear, it makes me feel very anxious. But I don't want to go on a tangent. That's a different conversation for a different video. But I just want you to just understand what trust looks like on a small scale and also on a larger scale. I'm going to end the video with this last tip. Allow room to be vulnerable. Like, what's the point of being in relationships if we can't be naked? And I'm not talking about just physically, y'all. If we can't be naked and we can't let our hair down and we can't show all the parts of us to our partner, like, what's the point of being in this relationship in the first place? Like, what makes this relationship different than any other relationship? Like, please allow room to be vulnerable. Be honest with your partner. Tell them what hurt you. Tell them how it made you feel. Tell them that it triggers the shit out of you when they do something. And trust that they will autocorrect. But also understand, if you keep communicating something to someone and they're not getting it, that could be potentially problematic, and you may have to make a decision on if that person is respecting your wishes or not. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right here. I hope you all got a ton of value out of this. I know it was lengthy. I'm going to go ahead and put the PDF file in the description if you care to download this information to work through it at a later date. Also, go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you have not and you want to continue to receive content and tap in with me on this channel. And then also, if you have an insecure attachment style or a secure attachment style and you want to talk about how you're working through it, go ahead and get in the comments and let us know what you're going through, and let's talk about it and keep the conversations going there. So that's all I have for you guys. Until the next time, peace.